Well, we're talking politics tonight. Days after the Texas primaries, the Democratic and Republican parties are hoping to make an impact on the November ballot. Now, we still have some races heading to runoffs. That happens in May, but both parties are still going to be working to attract voters. Our media partners at Texas Monthly have taken a closer look at this. Right now, let's go ahead and bring in Ben Rowan, who is joining us for tonight's discussion on the topic. Ben, good to see you. Let's go ahead and start with the Democrats' strategy. Why do you think Democrats are trying to gain more young men voters in the party? And what about women? What are they saying?
You know, after the 2024 election, Democrats looked and saw that they had slipped with many demographic groups. I think it's interesting that of all those groups, the one they've really honed in on is young men, who make up about 5 to 7% of the electorate. And I think the reason is because they're a little bit easier, require less cultural literacy, so to speak, to try and approach and win back than other demographic groups that Democrats struggled with, including, for that matter, old men. And middle-aged men. Where women fit in the picture, obviously every Democrat is running a campaign that theoretically is trying to appeal to lots of different groups. I think what you've seen this election cycle is that they've gone on podcasts that might have a male-skewed audience, are releasing videos from their home gyms while doing bicep curls. There's a real effort to try to appeal to men specifically that you aren't seeing for other groups.
Yeah. Well, can you tell us about the political strategy among Republicans? How are they going into all of this?
I think in 2024, Republicans had a pretty clear message, which was anti-incumbency. And I think for many young men who are struggling to make rent, have home ownership rates much less than their parents or their parents' generation, that anti-incumbency message struck a chord. Things are not good for me, and I will vote against who's in power. Now, of course, Republicans are in power. Their message has shifted a little bit. They are attacking wokeism and trying to make the pitch to young men that, you know, certain ways of speech, of monitoring how people speak, that walking on eggshells is not something that they should be doing, and that the Republicans are the party of honesty and anti-woke politics.
Well, you know, the race for U.S. Senate, that is one of the bigger races in Texas. So ahead of the runoff between incumbent John Cornyn and Ken Paxton, President Trump said once he announces support for one candidate, he's going to want the other to drop out, probably expect the other to drop out once that announcement is made. Could this help or hurt the Republican strategy, what the president is talking about doing?
It's interesting because last week, President Trump said he had made up his mind, but wasn't going to say who, and did not release an endorsement ahead of the primary. I think most reporting out there is that if he does endorse, it would be John Cornyn. John Cornyn is definitely from an older generation of politicians than Ken Paxton. I think theoretically, Ken Paxton might be able to appeal to younger men better than John Cornyn. I don't see any reason why Ken Paxton would drop out, though. He has his own base. He has his own very, very fervent supporters. And I think he would happily stay in this race even without Trump's endorsement.
Sure. Well, in November, James Tallarico, he will face off with whoever wins the Republican primary for the U.S. Senate race. So if the Democratic Party is trying to reach younger voters, how could Tallarico fit into that entire strategy, you think?
Tallarico launched his campaign, well, actually a couple months before he launched his campaign, he went on the Joe Rogan podcast. And that's a podcast that a lot of Democrats had shied away from going on in the past, or say they weren't invited to go on. And I think he has made a concerted effort to try and be in spaces, non-traditional media spaces, that young men listen to and exist within. And I think Tallarico is definitely popular amongst young folks I spoke to. I think he takes a more oppositional tone when talking about Republican priorities and defending his own. And when I was down in South Texas a couple months ago, that's something that a lot of young men I talked to referenced as a real reason why he might be different than other Democrats.
Okay. Our thanks to Ben Rowan for tonight's discussion. Of course, you can read his entire article. It's available for you right now on TexasMonthly.com. CBS News Texas will be right back.